Hey everyone, welcome to week 3 of our Christmas Delight Mystery Quilt-Along. So far you guys have made, I think, 10 blocks. This week we're going to add 4 more blocks to it. And you guys are doing a great job because you're posting it in the Quilting with Sandy group. This week we're going to learn all about flying geese, and we're going to learn multiple methods. You're going to learn the traditional method, and you're going to learn to use the It's So Emma flying geese paper. And you're going to learn to use the Creative Grids flying geese ruler. And these are the blocks we're going to make. The first 2 are going to be made with where you have 4 different flying geese. And then I also fussy cut the tops and bottoms of mine because I thought this Christmas stitch fabric is just adorable. And then you're going to make a sawtooth star where all 4 flying geese are the same. So here's both of my sawtooth stars. And I did fussy cut the centers of those. So let's get started. Hi everyone, Sandy here with Bella Rose Quilts. I'm going to show you week 3 of our Christmas Delight Mystery Quilt. This week we're going to be making 2 blocks, and the technique you're going to learn is how to make flying geese in 3 different ways. So the directions are written for the basic way, and when you do it the normal basic way, you want to make sure that everything's exactly accurate. Another way you can make it is with the Creative Grids Flying Geese tool, which is what I use. If I have to make 1, I have calculated out the measurements for you so you can make 1. Or you can use the 1.5 by 3 inch flying geese paper from It's So Emma. So let's take a look at the blocks and see what we're going to do. This first one is a flying geese. I have 4 different flying geese and my background and the tops to my ornament. And then the second one is the sawtooth star, and these are flying geese, 4 flying geese. So these are all 4 the same, which is great for using the ruler. So let's get started on this first one. So when you make the traditional flying geese, you're going to cut it per the measurements in the pattern. And these are the exact measurements that you need to make the flying geese for the block. So I'm going to put my glue in the corner. Oops, I don't want to do both of them at the same time. Ignore that I did that. I'm going to stick this one here. And then I'm going to sew on this line. Here it is. I pressed it towards the outside, and a good sign that you've done a good job is you don't see any white here and you don't see any red and pink there. So next I'm just going to trim off my 1/4 inch seams. Then I'm going to sew the next flying geese here. Flying geese is always double what the height is. So this is 1.5 by 3 finish, so 1.5 by 1.5 is 3. So I'm going to go sew this one on. Here it is, and I'm going to trim off the 1/4 inch seam allowance on the outside edge. So this is the flying geese, and sometimes, I don't know if you guys can quite see it, but if I line up this point and this point, it kind of gives the illusion of a curve, and it's not really an illusion, it actually is a curve. It just has to do with how accurate you are. So that's why I use the ruler or the paper. You can see I trimmed off just a little bit. But you can make all of your flying geese like this for your sawtooth star and your ornament with the 4 geese. So our other option, if we want to make 1 flying geese, is I took the measurements. You're supposed to cut, let me show you this. This is your goose, and this is your sky. So you're supposed to cut this goose fabric 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. That makes it big enough for you to trim it down using the Creative Grids ruler. And then you cut these 2 sky blocks at 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. So right here I have pre-sewn some somewhere. Turn it on. So here are 3, and these are cut larger, and I sewed on 1/2, and now I'm going to draw my line and sew on the other side. And I will do the same thing. I'm going to glue them on. here. And then I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew on the drawn line. Yeah, and I stuck glue on that. That was really good. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to go sew these together. Be right back. So we're back, and I'm going to just trim off my 1/4 inch. Guess I didn't need to make 4 of these, but I did it. Then we're going to make one more using the paper. I'm going to have lots of extras to put on the back of my quilt. Okay. What I'm going to do now is the first one you're going to trim, I always trim this one first, this little peak of my goose. And I know it's a C because this is 1.5 by 3. And I'm going to place it right here. I line up my C. And then I turn it over, and then it says trim 2. So I line up my C again, right in the corner, and I line the little point up and the left edge and the bottom edge. And I have a perfect flying geese, and I only had very minimal waste, and it was a lot more accurate. So this is how you would make one. You need 4 actually. So. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make a flying geese using the It's So Emma flying geese paper. This is 1.5 by 3 inch. That's our finished size. And with this paper, you can make 2 blocks at a time. But because we're making this block where we want 4 different ones, what I'm doing is I took off a piece of paper, I cut it in half. Here they are. Here's my 2 pieces. And I didn't cut my fabric quite as wide as she recommended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, before I do that, let's crease these. It makes it much faster. Right here and right here. This is where we're going to fold it back to cut our 1/4 inch seam. So we're going to turn it over on the back. I did that really hard. And I'm going to put my sew line glue here. And then I'm going to put this piece face up. And I need to make sure that I cover these lines, which I certainly have. And then I'm going to turn it back over. And I'm going to fold it on my crease. And line up my, add a 1/4 ruler, this little ledge that butts right up against that. There's one, and then I'm going to line up this one here. I'm going to trim there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from corner to corner, and then I'm going to put my sew line glue here, and I'm going to align this fabric here, and then I'm going to go sew on this line. You could sew on the 2 line, but I happen to put mine on the 3 line. Doesn't really matter. And then I turn my stitch length down to 1.5, and I make sure that I have a nice sharp needle. So let me sew this really quick like. So I sewed that together, and I sewed past it on both ends. Then I'm going to fold it back, and you can finger press it. You can use your roller, or you can iron it. I iron on the paper and I don't have any problems. Now I'm going to glue this one on, same thing. I want to make sure that I cover it. And then I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to sew right on this line. So here we go. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come back and you're going to trim on the solid lines. Do not rip off the paper first. I'm sure we've all done that before in our excitement to see what it looks like. That moved just a hair on me. Keep using this rotary cutter with the charm on it. makes noise. So now that I've trimmed it, all I'm going to do is I'm going to rip this paper off, and I have one perfect flying geese, just like my other ones. And I'm going to just go right here. Okay, so I have 5 right here, of course, because I was doing a demo, but I only need 4, so I have to pick out the 4 I like. So I think I'm going to pick out these 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew 2 together, just like this. And then you're going to sew these 2 together. And you can see this is the first one I did. Can you see the difference? Where I didn't use the ruler and I didn't use the paper. All of these are perfect. So this one is not so perfect. So, but we will make it work. So I'm going to sew these with the 1/4 inch seam. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have sewed this stuff, these together, and I want to now sew these 2 to these 2. So I get 4 of them. So let me quickly sew that together. Okay, so here we are. Here are my 4 flying geese. I'm going to trim up my edges, clean them up, because I don't want all those threads out there showing through on my quilt. Show this. And there we go. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do like every other block. You're going to sew the top and the bottom on and the 4 corners. All right, so now we're going to make the sawtooth star, and I fussy cut the center because I wanted something really cute in there. And my background is going to be this little candy cane, white on white, and that's this fabric and the middle of the goose. And then you have to have your green. So what you're going to do is you really only need 2 of these greens because you use the first 2 making the first block here, because it says to cut 4 of them, but you only need 2 for each block. I hope that makes sense. The only reason I'm pointing that out is because I did it wrong. I cut it all over again. So I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. And I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of the line. And put right sides together, right sides together. And this is going to give me my 4 corners. So I sewed these together 1/4 inch on each side. I'll hold it up a little closer. Hopefully you can see that. Now I am just going to cut it on the drawn line. Feels like it's crooked, loose. I'm going to cut this one. And then I'm going to press my seams towards the green because I want to make sure that my flying geese here is going this direction. So they're going to be in opposite directions if I do that. So I'm going to press it towards the green. So here they are, my 4 corners. I'm going to trim them down to 2 inches. I'm going to line up the middle line on my ruler, diagonal line, on my seam line, my diagonal seam line, and I'm just going to trim these. Okay, there's my 4 corners right here. This is my center. So now we're going to make the geese, and we're going to use the flying geese ruler because we can make 4 at one time, and the ruler shows you we're making number C, 1.5 by 3 inch finished, and it tells you to cut 1 4 3/4 inch block, which is your goose. Remember that? We're going to get 4 goose that look exactly the same. And these are going to be the sky because this is the star points. So you want your star points to be the color of your sky. And this is your background. It's different depending on what you're doing, but for this one, this is how we are going to do it. Okay. So, I also want to point something else out. If you take your cell phone and you put the camera on this QR code, it'll take you to a video that shows you 2 methods to make flying geese. I'm just going to show you the one that I use, but there are 2 ways to do it. So what you want to do is you're going to take your large square and you're going to cut it from corner to corner, and then you're going to turn it and you're going to cut it from corner to corner here. So some people, if it's a really big block, it's sometimes easier to just draw lines and then cut on the lines, because if they get separated, it's hard to get them back together. So what I do is I put it on my smaller little fig tree rotary mat. Love this thing. And I cut from corner to corner. And then I take the mat and I turn the mat. Of course, it's separated like this. And then I'm going to cut from corner to corner again. That way I didn't have to pick it up and it gets unaligned. It stays together. So these are my 4 geese. And then I'm going to take my skies, and I had 4 of them, and I'm going to cut them in half like this. And what you're going to do is you are going to take this one here, and I line it up down here and let the tail hang off the top. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. I always start sewing up. It doesn't really matter. You can start at this end or the other end, just as long as you don't start at a point that's going to be pulled down into your sewing machine. So I'm going to make 4 of them. And I don't glue these on. I pin them. Oh, here's my other square. Now let's take a look at this. This is your bias, and it's going to be stretchy, so you want to be careful with it. This is your straight of grain. It doesn't give. Because you took a square and cut it in half, this is straight of grain, this is straight of grain, and this is your bias. So you're putting your bias to your bias because it breaks some of the quilting rules to put your bias on the outside edge of your block. What happens is you kind of get a wavy quilt if you do it the other way. But this is how I do it, and I'm going to pin it. Grab my pins real quick. So I just pin it like that. Okay, now I'm going to go sew a 1/4 inch seam from here to here on all 4 of these. So all of these are now sewn from corner to corner, and I press them towards the red fabric. Now I'm going to stick on the other one, the other red here. I'm going to pin these. All 4 of them. So one thing I've learned as I've been making these YouTubes is I hold things really close to me and you can't see them, so I'm trying to do better at not doing that. Since I'm so new to making YouTube videos, I am learning on the fly. So now I'm going to sew these a 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to press them towards the red. So here we are. I have all 4 of these. I pressed them out like this. And it says trim number 1. So this is trim 1, and I'm going to line up my C point. It's really the only one that fits, but it's the 1.5 by 3, and it says it's C. Turn it around, turn my ruler around, and then I'm going to line up my C just like this. In the point, left side, bottom side, and trim it up. We have a perfect little flying geese. We're going to trim 1, the C, and then we're going to trim this one. One of the tricks I teach my students, and sometimes they find it really helpful, is they take these little stickies and take just a few of them, maybe 4, and you line them up right here in this corner like this. And one, you don't make a mistake because it's always there, but it kind of snugly fits right up in there. See it? I'm going to turn it around, and there's my C. Okay, so we have our center, we have our flying geese, and my flying geese, and this goes like this. Isn't that cute? It's cute. And this goes like this. I'm going to just kind of slide this down a little bit because I also wanted to show you my top for this one. So there's one, and here's the other, my top and my bottom of my ornament. Of course, you have to finish it. I have my bulbs for these already done. So this is going to go here. I'm going to sew on 2 sides. These are not the right sides. There's some sides. 1 side, 2 sides. And I have my bulb unit. So super easy. It'll be a lot of fun. So what I'm going to recommend that you do is you sew 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then sew them together. Let me show you the back of my block. It's the back of my block. So because there were so many seams coming together here, I did press my seams open. Threads. But you can see it lays really nice and flat. Okay, so I was just sitting here thinking I really want to show you guys something. When you sew these together, remember how I had you press towards the green and I had you press towards the red? That's so when you go to sew these together, they nest up against each other. I'm not sure if you can see that, but they are nesting, the 2 seams, and you'll get a better result from that. And I just pinch them in there, and then I put a pin, and then I put a pin on the other side. And do the same thing here. It's okay to pin them at the same time because they aren't going to be getting in the way of each other. I'm going to pin this one. This one's the easy one. Look at how nice and perfect those flying geese are. And I'm going to do this one. Again, they're just going to nest perfectly in there. Pin down here. I'm going to put this one here. And then I'm gonna sew my seams together. I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay. So I want to show you how it looks underneath on the back side. And I pressed my seams towards the center here, and I pressed it towards the blocks on the outside. You could press them open if you wanted to. I chose not to at this point, but I do on the next step. And again, you're going to get nice nesting seams here in the corner. I'm just butting these up against each other, and this nicely. Slide this one down. And then I'm going to do this one as well. Yeah, don't do it the wrong way. And I'm going to sew them together. So I sewed all of these together. I pressed them. I pressed these seams open, and then I trimmed off all the little threads and everything on the outside edge. You're going to want to sew these two on, one on each side, and then you're going to want to sew your top on. These I was showing you because I'm going to be using them in future, that I had fussy cut them. They're really cute. So anyway, I will sew this all together. So here's our two sawtooth stars. They're just adorable. So now you will have a total of 14 ornaments to hang on your Christmas tree. And we're almost done making ornaments, and we're going to move on to a few other things. And I wanted to ask you to join our Quilting with Sandy group on Facebook. And that's where I would love you to go post your blocks so you can be entered for a drawing. Every week I'm drawing somebody to win money that I will put into their account, loyalty rewards. If you like this YouTube video, please like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram and like our Facebook page. If we can do anything for you, just hop on over to our Quilting with Sandy group, and people there will be happy to help you. It's a great group. Take care. Thanks for joining us.